Welcome to Mel Bolton Associates' How to Make a Great Product podcast, where we explore best practices for taking great ideas from napkin sketches to mass production. I'm Stacy Alatsis, and joining me today from Mel Bolton Associates are Rob Fleck and Jay Tynan. And we are excited to welcome our very special guest, Vicky Winkler, owner of the Marketing Shop, to discuss the best ways to tell a great product story. Vicky, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at the Marketing Shop?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. And thank you for having me on today. So the Marketing Shop, I've had my business for just a little over 21 years. And we do branding, we do graphic design, we do product packaging design, we do traditional printing, and we do a little bit of also digital marketing as well. But we're really focused on the product packaging and traditional print materials. As I said, I've had my business for over 21 years. We have a great team of designers. And we really love doing product packaging design. It's a really fun industry. And so I'm just excited to be on the show today. Thanks.
Oh, Vicky, great to have you here. Thanks for being on. This kind of your experience fits very well with what we like to talk about here on the How to Make a Great Product podcast. Because you've touched so many products, you've dealt with so many people. I'm sure over the years you've picked up a number of rules that make things display better, the things that you can do to really make a package pop on shelf or online. Tell us a little bit about that. Do you have certain things you've noticed with your customers that, if we do this, or if a customer comes to us with this type of package, we can do better? What really sets the best products apart from the rest?
Well, I think that the number one thing to do is to make sure that you're working with your product packaging supplier and your product packaging designer from the very beginning of your product implementation. So, making sure that you're really understanding what makes sense for this. What's the actual structure of this product packaging going to look like, and working back and forth, because there's a lot of things that in those beginning stages that as a customer, you may kind of go off in this direction where you're kind of excited about doing this and you have this vision, but then we come in at the product packaging and say, well, gosh, if we do that, this is going to be the cost, or if we do that, we're going to be restricted in this way. And so you really need to hammer those things out in the very beginning so that everybody kind of understands. And then you go from that point, then we can step into design. But you never just launch into design before you've had all those discussions first.
Right. That makes sense. I like how you say you work with the whole packaging team from the get-go. I like to actually do the packaging before we even start making the product, because so much of the product value proposition just defines, in fact, the product value proposition does define what the product's going to be. So if you've made a promise to the customer, how do you portray that? And if it's going to be on a package and that package is going to be on shelf, how do you tell that on the front of the package? And there have been times where we learn, hey, there's something off with our promise. We can't convince the customer to pick up the package and turn it around and read it. So that's really important to get the whole thing, to get the package before you get the product, right?
Absolutely. And we love working with incubators and any kind of organization or group where people are coming in kind of right at the very beginning. Hey, I've got this idea. I've always wanted to launch my own line of essential oils. I've been kind of selling them, maybe white labeling, but now I have some real ideas. So that's at the point where, okay, stop, let's back up and let's really start talking about the whole piece, because it is the whole piece. The product is not just the little bottle of essential oil. It's everything that goes around it, that surrounds it, including any of the marketing, the branding, and any of the other collateral materials. So all of that really needs to be determined together right from the start.
The whole customer experience, right? Where did they first see your brand? And then how do they travel all the way through and wind up at that shopping cart to make that final decision? And how do you influence every one of those? That's a long process, and you have to do that with so many things, and you don't realize all the steps. Here, when we're sending out, even I think recently we had to do a customer journey just because we were adding a bonus material at the end, and there was a link just in YouTube, and where does that go, and where does it land, and how do you make it here, and how do we get so you have to work on all of those, and you have to make sure it's on brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about, when people are buying a product on Amazon and
Mhm.
they're seeing the pictures of the product, of the package, in the package, out of the package, and they're seeing lifestyle shots. So all of those things, they're seeing the logo. So all of those things paint the picture. And so those things need to come. They kind of need to all happen at the same time. Those discussions, those at least the high level discussions, need to take place before you launch into this, because there's many times where somebody has a great idea, but then when they really kind of start getting into some of the nuts and bolts of it, they realize, oh gosh, this might not be viable because of reasons A, B, or C. And so it's a heck of a lot better to have those discussions before you've gotten into any kind of production, making any kind of decisions, invested a lot of money. And so, and it's just going to make it more profitable, even if so let's say it is a great and viable idea, still need to have those high level discussions so that it really becomes the best it can be, the best for sales, the best profit margins. And those discussions, you need to have those before you've actually launched into production.
Absolutely. And test, right? Test, test, test.
Yes.
We like to set up a situation where we can mimic a little bit of a shopping experience. It's not super high tech. It's not virtual reality, right? It's not, you don't get to put on the goggles and pretend you're going through some Sephora or something like that. It's more, here's a picture of a planogram from about 12 feet away. Which one draws your attention? And then here's 3 feet away. And then here's where you pick it up. That whole journey through the store is so important when you're making packaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to do something to draw them to your package from 12 feet away, the 12-foot read, 3-foot read, and the arm's length read. What do you do? What are your tricks to, not tricks, it's art. What is the art you do, right? To draw people across the aisle to your package?
Yeah, I think that there's actually a number of things. I mean, the first is, it's funny that you touched on, of course, doing the testing. Is that even internally here in our office with our team of designers, I'm always saying, hey, we've got to early on, right at the get-go of designing this, we need to be doing mock-ups. We've got all kinds of my designers in my office of all kind of little tiny boxes and things around their desk, where we're printing them out flat, we're folding them, and we're asking each other, hey, what do you think? Hey, when you pick this up, what's the first thing? And so I think that that's super important, is to not design flat. Is that you have to, at every stage in the design process, you need to be printing it out, you need to be folding it, you need to be curving it, you need to do whatever you need to do to make sure that you can see that the font sizes are going to be right, that it's going to be visible. And just that, having also a real one of the actually tricks that we have is when you're into the design, you've been working on it for a while, set it aside and let it brew for a day or two, and then come back to it and take a fresh look. The advantage of in our office having multiple designers is that we can have one person, okay, shut the file down. You've been working on it for a while, pass it on to someone else. When you first open it, what's the first thing you see? And that's what we do all the time to each other, is like, okay, I'm working on this file. Hey, when you open it up, what's the very first thing you see? And if it's not, and that might be different for any product, and so you need to make sure though, that ahead of time, what is the main thing or the main few things that we want people to see. And if you don't see that when it's first opened up, that the consumer is not going to see that first either. And so that's, I think, super important, is to just be, again, doing those mock-ups along the way and making sure that you don't get too far into the design. And we do this with even our marketing materials, brochures and other things we do, postcards. It's print it out. Let's actually see, because when you're working on a computer monitor, it's a heck of a lot different than when you actually print it out actual size to see what it looks like. So, and there's many times where we're like, whoa, that font size is way too big, or that font size is way too small. And you can't tell that until you actually physically get a mock-up of it.
Do you ever compare your mock-ups to competitive products, assuming there are competitive products?
For sure. We do
That's
a
one
lot.
thing we do.
Yeah, we do a lot of, and within the comfort of our own office, we do a lot of searching on the internet, looking at other packaging, and definitely to see what others are doing. And of course, our goal is to exceed what others are doing, but it's super important to look at what's going on in the competitive space. And I always say that you have to play in the same sandbox. You have to play within your industry, but you don't want to be outside of the sandbox. You want to stand apart inside your sandbox, but you don't want to be so far out that people are like, I mean, again, using the wrong colors, the wrong kind of fonts, the wrong kind of imagery on certain products. People are just gonna say, this doesn't fit, this doesn't make sense. It's, you're not, if you're a technology company, you're not going to use primary colors in your logo like a daycare. It would be perfect for, but maybe not for an IT company. So there's so many things like that again, staying within your sandbox is really important. And there's plenty of ways that you can make yourself stand out, but still be within your industry.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like to say it to back up that point, because I fully agree with what you're saying. You have to be in the sandbox. I always say, hey, look at the market leader. That market leader may be J&J or Procter and Gamble or Apple or something like that. They spent millions of dollars on that market research. Go ahead and rip a little bit of it off. You don't copy it. You don't want to look like you're pretending to be them.
No, it's just a direction.
Yeah. Figure out their sandbox and then play in there and do a little bit better. Right. That's a good rule to go by. I love that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Sorry. Another thing we've done in the past, Vicky, is we have computer renderings, and a lot of times we'll take a package or a product and put it on a shelf. We'll have the CAD system do a shelf and have it next to competitive products. It's a nice way to quickly see where you fit in relation to all the other products. It's helpful, but we do a lot of CAD renderings too. You do mock-ups, and do you do CAD renderings too of your designs?
No, we just whatever we're designing, within our software and just doing printouts. So the mock-ups that we do are pretty rudimentary, but they're but again, it's the same thing. Looking at the competitive products and looking at, and it's always so important to see how you're going to stand out on the shelf if it be a retail product, and looking, hey, and again, just like you said, we don't want to copy and be just like them, because we do have our own unique branding, our own unique items, our own unique look and feel and vibe. And so, we know, hey, we see A, B, and C on the shelf, and then, oh, ours is D, and it stands out because it's got this, and maybe it's color, maybe it's imagery, maybe it's the logo. And there's ways to achieve that. If you don't do any of that, though, then all of a sudden you're at risk for not standing enough apart, or looking so much the same. And, we do it with all types of things we do. We do souvenir artwork, and I go to places. We do a lot of works with the national parks, and I make sure I'm going in those stores and I'm looking at what's available. And so we have to make sure that we stand apart. But again, playing within the same industry.
Yeah. The store visit is so important to really. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's cool. So what really jumped out at me early in your introduction here, you were talking about essential oils or other products like that. And it's not the products, it's the idea of where those ideas are coming from. It seems to me, and you'll have to confirm, it seems to me like there are people now who are doing a good job on social media, creating a personality, influencing things, and now they want to get to the point where they're ready to make their own product. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, we see a lot of that where they sort of have this illusion that, well, I'd have this idea, and it's funny because I'm a marketing instructor, adjunct professor at a local college, and I get a lot of my students who are like, well, they have this great idea for this product, and I'm just going to be able to just do a little bit of social media, and I'm not going to need to spend money on Google Ads or anything like that, because that's way too expensive. I'm just going to get on social media, and all of a sudden these orders are just going to be coming in like crazy, and I'm going to probably hardly be able to keep up. And it's so much more complex than that. And that, again, still goes back to talk to the experts early on, really get an idea of what do you need to do. And so I'm constantly having to tell my students, it's not going to work. Just social media, you are going to have to spend some money in other ways to advertise and promote. And there's all kinds of ways now to advertise and promote products with live webinars and instructional videos. There's just so much more that we have access to and that's available. And you really need to take advantage of, and to not be doing the things that everybody else is doing, and find other ways to to get the message out.
Yeah, I understand. And to build in, if build in the cost of those advertising efforts to the price. A good rule of thumb is, and it varies by market, right? If you're selling food through a grocery store, your markup is a lot less. But if you're selling, say, electronics, a good rule of thumb is take the costs that's required to get that product in your warehouse and multiply that by 3.5 or 4, because when the distributor you send it to, the shipping, the returns, and then the cost of advertising, that's going to take up almost all of that margin. And I have seen and people try to compete on price, and I have witnessed firsthand companies that make hundreds of millions of dollars decide, you know what, we're just going to lower our price. We're not going to spend money on advertising. People will come to us. They don't. They absolutely do not. And it could be that, put you into a death spiral if you don't build in the cost of your advertising. So, take that one home. 3.5 times your price at a minimum, and your cost at a minimum for your street price.
Yeah.
So when someone comes to you and they say, hey, I built up a following online, and I have 200,000 followers, and I think it's time for me to jump off making a product, and this is the product I want to make. How do you guide them then? How do you take that person and guide them towards a successful product?
Yeah. So I think that definitely the first step is to talk about that whole package. Okay, hey, how are we going to package it? How's it going to be shipped? How are you going to market it? What are the different avenues you can use? What kinds of existing stuff have you done or do you need? And making sure that you have all of the things in place too. The website, you need to, if you're going to be selling online, how you're going to be, make sure that you've got that whole path ready to go. Before you, and again, all this stuff happens well before we even start talking about design. But then when we get to that point of talking about design, we really tout everything staying on brand and making sure that if you have a line of products, that everything is so that when the consumer sees the product, they see your website, they see any marketing materials, that they know, hey, this feels comfortable because this is all in the same family to have. And so, a lot of times our clients will come and they'll say, oh, well, I've got this product line, and then I've got this product line, and I've got this, and I want everyone to have a completely different look and feel. And that depends. If it's a completely separate, if it's an electronic product versus a food product and you're doing both, then that's different. But if they're within the same type of product, you want to have some carryover and consistency in your brand, yet understandably, you want each to stand apart. So there's a real skill in doing that, and making sure that you have things that are in the same family, yet they still, each of the products stands apart in its own way. And that can be done with logos, with graphics, with imagery. But making sure that, again, coming back to, let's look at this all together. Let's step back and let's look at everything that we're producing and make sure that we've got enough brand consistency so that people recognize this. And so it's harder for people to like, know, and trust a brand if things are very different. It just doesn't feel they have to relearn things if things are very different from one to the other, if that makes sense.
Can we dig into that on brand deeply? Think about the folks who watch this podcast. It's mostly a LinkedIn crowd, and it could be people who are in sales, or people who are in product management, or people in product development, of course, marketing people. It could be people who have a small business. They're trying to make more products, and they might, I can tell you in my career, I've heard a lot of times people who are not in marketing and branding say, okay, I keep hearing it has to be on brand. What does that mean? And I know that can mean, look, our logo looks this way and that, but it means a lot more than that. Yeah. Break that down for everyone else in the company. What does on brand mean?
Yeah, it's funny because I taught a webinar this morning and someone asked the same exact question. What exactly does that mean? And so, we talk about all of the different touch points of a brand. Yeah, it starts with the logo But then it's all of, not only all of your marketing materials, it's your website, it's your social media, it's your logo, it's obviously your product packaging, it's the primary and secondary product packaging, but it's also how you conduct business. It's how you conduct yourself in a Zoom call. When you're with buyers and suppliers and sellers and salespeople, that brand is not only just the physical thing that people see, but it's how you communicate. It's what do they see when they come to the website. It's when you have a video on your website, the quality of it. If you're selling products you're selling a product on Amazon, and you have your hero shot, and you have your other lifestyle shots, and you have your product detail pages, and you have your video. All of that stuff needs to have that same look and feel, same colors, same kind of personality. We have clients who, in the imagery, is it people who are cut out in isolated shots, or is it lifestyle shots? Is it, does it tend to be a lot of nature shots? And it's funny because when you put two different brands side by side, and you look at all of their stuff, all of their marketing, all their communications, and you look at another one, you can then when you have two side by side that are both doing a good job, you can clearly see, oh yeah, all this stuff goes together, and all of this stuff goes together. And so some of it is, you can feel when things are off, and a consumer can feel when things are off. They don't always feel it when things are all working. It just feels comfortable. But when things aren't working, a consumer can feel it. And if you do a focus group, they can identify it. But if they do a focus group of something that's working really well, it's a lot harder to say, well, no, it all feels right. It all feels like it goes together, that it's all on brand, as I would say.
Right. I understand. So that translates into product design as well. Let's say you're making a product that requires a USB cable for power. It could be a charger for a power bank for camping, or it could be a power cable for a diffuser for essential oils, right? Now you can go sort the black cheap one, source it from somebody and throw it in the package. And that will probably get away, because on one of them, it's just a power cable and people are used to a black power cable. But if it's going with that power bank that's going to go camping with you, and it just looks like some cheap power cable, well, it's starting to break down on that story. And then Jay, you can take, the designer can take that simple power cable and say, look, let's give it some outdoor colors. Let's wrap it in a braid so it looks a little more durable, that it's going to go outdoors. And then same thing with that diffuser. Yeah, we could get the cheap one that's black, but the white one costs maybe 2 pennies more. And now it starts giving a little higher end feel, right? Maybe we could get a little faux bamboo connector on it or something. Now we paid a little bit more, but you've really created a high end brand there just by keeping all those things together. So that branding expands from, as you said, it starts with the logo, but it also is how you conduct yourself in a meeting, what your emails look like, what your outreach looks like to your customers, and then what the power cable looks like. All those little things have to add up. Jay, what do you do to tell stories when you're making a product, for any kind of example you want to share?
Tell stories? The design? You're talking about the design? Yeah. One thing that kind of ties into what we were talking before is sometimes you have a product line. You have a low end, somewhere in the middle, and maybe a higher end, and that also has to be reflected in the packaging. And colors and graphics, and maybe an added feature, a capability feature, to help sell the higher end model. I mean, these are all things that you look at when you're designing a whole product line. And Vicky, I assume that packaging reflects all this too. Here's the basic model. Here's good, better, and best. Remember that? Good, better, and best. It's one of the department stores things. But yeah, that's what all those things go into it.
Yeah.
And usually in our field, product design, it doesn't really mean new tooling, because new tooling can be really expensive. It does mean maybe new features, but it does not mean, anything that's too expensive. Just features. You add the features, the capability. Yeah.
You see it every day in cars, right? Cars usually have whatever it is. Pick any random SUV. There's a good, better, and best, right? and the trim inside and outside. The basic one is just rough black plastic. And then the mid-level might be shiny plastic that's black, or shiny black rims. And then the top one might have chrome on it, right? Same car, but you've just changed the color of a few pieces here or there, and it presents itself so much better. You're like, wow, that chrome foil, yeah, that is worth the extra $5,000. I want that.
I mean, like looking at a Maserati, doesn't it look expensive? You compare that to, a Prelude or whatever.
That's different from where you started with good, better, and best. I mean, obviously Maserati's at the top, but with good and better and best, you can take, Hyundai Elantra. Like, here's the basic one, but look at this Hyundai Elantra Type N. We've added all these, graphics to it and better shape and everything, but you didn't change the whole car. You just changed some of the pieces, and you're able to go up. And then, on consumer products, on shelf, on package, you do that, maybe a little more spot gloss in the middle and a little bit of foil on the top end package, and it really pops out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we have, we're working with a client right now that has a client going into the Amazon market, and is going to be selling what they're it's a high-end plush. I mean, it's a 7-inch or 9-inch stuffed animal, and you think, okay, well, you can go on Amazon and you can find you can find them nice and cheap, but they are not wanting. This is a high quality stuffed animal. It's got all the right materials that go into it: the feel, the soft, the texture, the weight, and so as we were talking about not only the packaging of it, but all of the photography. And there's some things that we can do down and dirty. We can get a light. We have a light box. We can take some photography in the light box, but like a product like that, you need high-end photography. You really need, and there is a whole art and skill to that, of hiring a professional photographer that can really take those spot on. And that's the other good, better, best, is that there is sometimes where, depending on what the product is, and that if there's photography involved, that we can kind of do some down and dirty, and it will work. It will still look good, but there's times when you're going to be commanding a higher price that you've got to go with that higher end photography. And so it's a little thing, it's a subtle thing that people might think, oh, well, it's just a picture of the product, right? But what a huge difference if you look side by side to a product, even a product packaging that has low end photography and one that's got high end photography. And until you really see them side by side, you're like, wow, okay, I get it now. And to explain that to a customer or a consumer, somebody's actually going to be the seller of the product, to show, okay, well, if you're going to be commanding this price, this is why we need to go with a higher end type of photography. And showing those examples kind of side by side will tell the story of, okay, I understand now why the value is here, and this is where we need to be. And so, for this particular product line, we're going to need to go with this higher level. And so it's some of those little things that do make a difference in how the consumer sees it.
It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting too. Some photo studios use computer renderings and AI to simulate a product rather than take a picture of it, because you can control the lighting and the reflections, and you can really add to the drama and contrast. It's hard to take a picture perfectly, but in CADs you can change it. It's just amazing stuff. And going back years ago, we used to use marker for renderings, but now the 3D computer modeling is just such an advantage.
To the point where it's better than photography. It started off as good as the photo, and now it's better. Until you start doing those lifestyles. So those lifestyles, that needs a true photographer, a true on scene. And
concept. I was talking about strictly a product photo. You're talking about a whole branding.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Vicky, I couldn't agree more with what you were saying there. Price itself, consumers use as a surrogate for quality, right? They can't go and tour the production line. They can't sit with the design team as they're doing it. They don't know everything that's going into the quality, but price itself is used as a surrogate for quality. And me being a product manager for almost 30 years, I still, as a consumer, I'm like, well, this will cost a little more. It better be better. But if you put in all that work, and you've set your price so that you can tell your story better and you're getting it out there. If you've done all that work and then put that same low end image next to the low end one, that story breaks down, doesn't it? That was your point. So that photo shoot, it may cost a little bit more up front, but it's going to pay off forever. It's a one-time cost. It costs the same to print the package. It's 4-color. It's going to be the same. So pay up front to get that good photo that tells the story, that shows the product value proposition, and shows those people whose lives are better using this product, because it's going to pay off forever on your product, right?
Yeah, it's an emotional
Absolutely.
reaction.
Yeah. And you know, and what you're kind of saying too is the reverse is true. If all the stuff looks really like very high value, that the product appears to be of very high quality, and then when they actually receive the product and it's not, that's you know, that's obviously a, you know, then you've kind of oversold yourself on the marketing communication part of it. And so the reverse is also just as bad as not being able to actually sell the product, because you're commanding this price and the marketing materials and the packaging looks this way, a little bit lower end. You're never going to make the sales. But you don't want to also have people be deceived and not meet their expectations because your marketing communication is a higher level than what the actual product is.
Right. You have, if you're selling a quality product, sell it as a quality product. But if your product's not quality, it doesn't matter what you do with the packaging, everything. They're going to open it. They're going to be upset. They're going to return it. It's going to cost you more than you made it, right? And now you're just losing money hand over fist.
Yeah.
I fully agree. I like, you know, that branding, and the delight of getting a new product continues once you get it home and you open it, right? And the out-of-box experience is really important. And there's something, and I don't know if this is used by everyone, but I call it unexpected delight. And I think I learned that at Belkin, and I think I learned it from the VP of Industrial Design at the time at Belkin. But as you open the box, you start seeing like even the way it comes out is really making you feel good. And you just spent money, and whether it was $20 or $200 or $2,000, you really want to feel good about spending that money. You don't want to just dumping stuff out and it comes out like, cereal from a box and it falls on your table and you're like, well, this thing, I don't even know if it's going to work now. Now you're breaking down that story. But if it's coming out and it looks like you've opened a diamond ring, it's coming out of a gift box and it's there, and now you're like, wow, this was good money I spent. This is the right thing. So when you're doing packaging, you have to think about that too. That's really my favorite part. And I like to throw things into the setup experience as you open up and you start reading the instructions. If you're a person that reads instructions, I like to throw in little messages like, you got this, things like that. So they feel like, oh, cool, they're in this with me, that brings the story home.
Right.
And I think if this may or may not be true, but I believe that if that OBX or out-of-box experience is great, that's one of the magic areas where you start creating brand loyalty. Everyone talked about, the way an Apple product comes out. They're like, oh, it looks like so. How do you manage your out-of-box experience? What are the things that you look for as you're delivering that final unexpected delight?
Yeah. So I love that, the unexpected delight. And so that's just another opportunity for your whole brand personality to come through. Just like you said, that little, the instruction or the little card on top that says, thank you, we appreciate you. Here you go. Time for an adventure. Let the adventure begin now. Whatever that personality part that you can put into that. Yeah, that is such a feel-good moment. And it's so unexpected. Just like you said, people open up, those boxes, where you have the little magnet, oh gosh, and you open it and it kind of snaps them closed. And I mean, that is every time I get something like that, it's like, okay, this is the real deal, and you open it and there's, you're expecting to maybe just, okay, what's this product I got? But if there's a little note of some kind on the right there, again, just another brand opportunity, and does not add a lot of cost. And I'm surprised that more people don't do that. because it's such a great opportunity to then right before they actually dig into the product is this small note that just makes them smile. And that's just such a nice added touch.
Have you done anything with, someone who's doing direct customer? So it's just in a warehouse and doesn't have to look good on the outside. And it's like, brown on the outside, like everybody else's. But then what you focus on is when you open it, now it's a color box. Now it looks like you've opened a gift. Have you done anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, we have, I still think that even if you're sending something that somebody is just going to get and kind of open the package, that, if you can ever have an opportunity to add your branding, to add some personality to it, that's really important. But it is, again, that when you're opening up and there's that little unexpected on the inside, again, it's anything that you can do to get people to smile, to get people to just say, kind of the tilt of the puppy dog tilt of the head. Like, oh my gosh, this is nice. Because there's so many opportunities to do those things. And there's so many times where we don't have that. And so when somebody is taking that little extra step to do something like that, it really makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And you might even create a repeat customer if they're that happy with the experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if something does go wrong with the product, it's going to create that situation is going to be less painful, because they're going to say, okay, well, maybe such and such went wrong with the product, but I just feel like this company is going to support me, whether it be the return, whether it's going to be backing by the product. So it makes that experience also on that end a little bit softer. And that can be important too. And we never want products to have problems with products, but it does happen. But if you already going into, and then of course the customer service end needs to follow through all of that too. So that's, when they actually do call to make that call, that if the whole personality of this nice little note card doesn't match when they actually make that phone call, then it breaks down at that point too. So again, everything on brand, it's so much more than just the logo and just your marketing.
Yeah. Companies who really focus on customer first cultures, those are the ones that succeed, right? Because they'll do all these things. And if that customer first only exists in the marketing group, then as you just said, when someone calls with the problem, it breaks down because they've outsourced their customer support to someone who doesn't know their company culture, then it breaks down the brand right there. But if you can make sure that customer first goes all the way through to customer support, to the warehouse, even to accounting, however accounting touches that customer, then those are the customers that succeed. It's probably the most important thing to keeping your company on brand, is remembering what your customer thinks about you.
Yeah. And when the culture of the company is that, the creative ideas come out of that too. And that's where the things those ideas for, oh my gosh, well, what if we did this for our customers, or what about this? And those it cultivates those kind of ideas and just encourages them to happen. And they kind of come out of nowhere sometimes, just because that's what people in the organization have been known for and come to know. And so it's a great way to flourish more ideas when you have a culture like that.
Absolutely. Being the marketing shop, being an agency serving people, Mel Bolton Associates being an agency servicing people. Agencies have approach ideas differently than internal ones do, and it's not better, and it's not always. But I'm driving somewhere with this. As an agency, someone comes to you with an idea, that every idea has merit, and you give it its due, right? And you're like, that's great, tell me more about it. We're the same way here. Internally, and your point that if you have a good customer first culture, then creativity comes, and it can come from anywhere. Someone from the warehouse might come to you, or someone from tech support may come to the product manager and say, look, I have this idea because we're running into this, and you could put this. Bad marketing people, bad product managers in big corporations, they'll start telling that person why they're wrong, right? Just because they don't want to deal with it. So whereas agencies, they'll be like, tell me more, right? Let's dig into this. Let's figure out what it is, and let's get the best part out of this. And that's one of the That's one of the advantages of using outside agencies to build on your small business. You're really getting the people who are open-minded and willing to work with you on your great idea, you know?
Right. Yeah. And when you have that outsider looking in perspective too, like, okay, if I was to put myself in the shoes of the buyer of this product, what would I be looking for? What would be important to me? And that's why it's great to have a team of graphic designers like we do too, because we all have different personalities. We all come from kind of a different space. We have two gals, we have two guys, we have the athletic one, we have the quiet one. And so we have this really diverse group, and to be able to look at it and say, and from different angles. And inevitably, somebody always comes up with an idea that no one had thought of. And we think, oh my gosh, that's great. And sometimes a customer will often come to us kind of with their ideas. And we're thinking, this isn't going to work. And so instead of the shut down, this just isn't going to work, let's think of some creative ways to do it. It's in a slightly different way, still maybe using some core of that idea, and just, really thinking through. So we're rather not quick to say, oh, well, that's not going to work. It's more like, okay, well, let's look beyond that, because that it's not going to work forces us to dig deep to say, well, what would work? And coming up with some really creative alternatives that would achieve the same thing, but we wouldn't have thought of if that first idea that was, that one's not going to work. If that had not come, those other creative ideas would not have been developed. So it's kind of like getting the no forces you to really work hard to get the yes.
Absolutely. That brings it full circle. We started this start with your packaging, right? So someone comes to you with an idea and you're like, look, this is how it looks on packaging. I don't think they're picking up. This doesn't seem like something that they're willing to pay an extra dollar for, or to draw you away from a brand they already know, right? Let's take that idea and make it into a promise that really resonates with your core customer. Because there are no bad products. It's just bad messaging or bad pricing, one of the two, right? You can get to the right mix if you focus. Number one question, who's your customer? What do they want, right? And you keep moving that way.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. What would you say if someone were sitting at home and they have a small business or something, and they have a new product they want to take to market, or maybe someone who's a influencer and they want to switch from being an influencer to being a product company, what would you say the best advice you could give them right now to make that move, other than call Vicky at the marketing shop? After you say that.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer, but so I guess I can't use that one. But I would say talk to experts, is to ask people, ask around, start asking, whether it's on social media, asking your friends and family, other business associates, is really research, interview, talk to people, get as much information as you can ahead of time. And just asking the different perspectives, asking the accountant person, asking the marketing person, asking the product packaging person. And you're going to get different answers from each of those, but it's going to help you to make a more well-rounded decision, and a better decision. And I would say that don't worry about getting 100% there, because I don't think there's any business or any venture that anybody has gone into and said, yep, 100%, absolutely, positively, this is going to be successful. There's always that little bit of doubt, that little bit of unknown, and that's okay. So get 80% of the way there, and then say, okay, the rest of the 20%, we're just going to go on faith, and we think it's going to go great, but you don't have to be 100% of the way there. And then you kind of take that leap, but get 80%. Get a lot of information, as much as you can, and then say, okay, now the rest of it, it's okay that I don't have it all completely figured out. I have a good chunk of it. I feel really confident, and then take that leap, and know that you've got the experts behind you to help you along the way.
Love it. And is that what you teach in your courses that you teach at the college?
So, yeah, that is one of the things that we talked about, because one of the classes that I do teach is a entrepreneur class. And so we're working on marketing plan and business plans. And there's that point where you can't figure it all out. You know, before you, as a woman, before you have a child, people can tell you, oh, it's wonderful, you know, when you have that child. Nobody can tell you what it really is like when you have that child. And so a business is the same way, is that nobody can really tell you what it's going to be like to be an entrepreneur, to have all of the different things going on. But at some point, you just have to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for it. And so, yeah, and the rest falls into place.
Okay. If someone wants to hear more from you and learn more or get in touch with you, where can we find you?
Yeah, well, the best place would be our website, which is www.tms, that's T as in Tom, M as in Mary, S as in Sam, .marketing.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. And I love the stories you shared with us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you, Vicky. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us. And thank everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next time on the How to Make a Great Product podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.